Okay, well, I think we'll go ahead and kick off this latest webinar in our series, and I'm sure there'll be some others that join us as we get going, but it's great to have you all here. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I know it's a busy time for everyone, so we're really happy to be able to share some information with you and see you today. So just a couple of housekeeping items. If you've joined us for previous webinars, you'll be familiar with all of this, but just a general reminder for everyone's sort of ability to hear and get all the information on the webinar. Please make sure your microphone is muted for the entirety of the presentation. Ideally, it's great for bandwidth reasons and stuff to also keep your cameras off just because we have so many attendees. So if you can just make sure to keep muted for that, that would be really helpful. We will be monitoring the chat during the webinar. So this is your opportunity to ask any questions or to seek clarification on any issues or information that's provided. So do use the chat function if you have questions. What we'll do at the end is we'll do a little Q&A session if there are things that we want to talk about in more detail. Please bear in mind that it's really helpful if those questions are general questions that usually relate to everyone on the call. If it's a very specific question for your situation, please remember to drop us an email at dcuglobalrecruitment@dcu.ie. And we can address any queries or anything that you might have that's affecting your personal situation. But we don't have time to go through everyone's individual questions. So if you can just kind of keep those fairly general about the information provided, that would be really helpful. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide there, Darren. So again, just a big welcome and hello from the team here, the Global Recruitment team. For those of you, again, who have been attending some of our previous webinars, you'll be familiar with us, but my name is Bridget Carey. I'm the Global Recruitment Manager here at DCU, and I'm joined by my colleague, Tiago, who is our International Recruitment Officer. So hopefully you're familiar with both of us, but just to know that we're part of a team here in DCU that is available and willing to help and assist you with any questions, particularly as we get closer to the start of term. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we're more than happy to help or at least point you in the right direction. I'd also like to introduce my colleague, Darren Myler, who is the Curriculum and Registration Manager. And we're very happy to have Darren with us today because he is going to cover off on sort of the main information today regarding registration, onboarding, and all of the processes that you'll need to go through in order to start your studies here at DCU. So it's a really important topic. I'm sure it's at the forefront of a lot of people's minds, a lot of questions about how to go about doing this process. So it's a really great opportunity to kind of hear straight from the source what needs to be done and how you can make sure that you've covered off on everything prior to starting your studies here. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to you, Darren, and let you kick off, and we'll come back in at the end with any questions.
Super. Thanks, Bridget. Okay. Hello, everybody, and thanks for coming along. As Bridget said, registration is a really, really important part of the process of coming to DCU. So just a quick bit about what registry does. I work in the registry in DCU, and we look after all the life cycle kind of academic administration of students. So you would have already dealt with the admissions end of things. So that that team's in the registry, then onto registration. And then we also deal with exams and a small bit about graduation as well. So we kind of help students all the way through their life cycle to get through the different processes. So just today, I'm going to bring you through some information on onboarding. And just to explain what onboarding is, it's just how you set up your username and password to get into our system. Once you've onboarded, you move on to registration. We'll have a little bit of a talk about that. We'll have some information just about fees, because obviously fees and registration go hand in hand. And then just a small bit about after registration, some of the registry services that we provide. So we provide the student ID cards. Some of you may need letters proving that you're a registered student to set up bank accounts or whatever. So some of those services are available through the registry office, and I'll talk about that as well. Okay. Okay, just so the steps for registration, as I mentioned, onboarding. So each new student in DCU is allocated a unique email address. So that's your DCU student email address and a password that is used to access your DCU email and into the DCU systems and to register for your program. So it's really, really helpful if you have your application number. So I'd imagine most of you have gone through the DCU application portal, which is CRM. So that number is usually attached to your student number, or is the same as your DCU student number. So it's very handy to have that. So you're going to get an email to bring you through the steps of onboarding, and that will be sent on the day that you're due to register. So I believe most people on the call will be postgraduate students. So you'll receive that email by the 21st of August, which is Monday week. So not long now to get it. So you'll get an email with some steps and instructions. You click a link, you go in, you set up your username and password. And once that's set up, you get a second email then, and that brings you through to the registration area. So really onboarding and registration all happen at the same time. So that's just a small bit about onboarding. So like I said, you'll get that by the Monday the 21st. And you'll be able to do that and move on to registration. So second bit of registration is obviously then into the registration area. The system will bring you into something that we call the registration schedule. Now, the registration schedule is just a list of your modules, your options, your core modules, and how and the rules, I suppose, of how you go about selecting them on the system. So I'm just going to try and see if I can link or actually just share what the registration schedule looks like. If I still have it here, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to jump out of this and just share this screen. Can you see that, Bridget, there? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can.
Okay, so the system will bring you into this registration schedule. So I've just picked a master's in computing program. So it's year 1. So what I'd say, first of all, once you come into this area, take your time and read the information on the screen. There is a lot of information, but if you just take your time and understand what's being asked of you at the minute, it really helps further down the line to work through the steps in the registration system. So it's the purpose of the information sheet is to allow you to view all the modules connected to your qualification. So they're optional and core. You can print it out if you want, but it's your responsibility to ensure that you're registered correctly. So below is the MSc in computing. There's three majors that these students can enroll in. So if you're majoring in the secure software engineering, you have to register for these modules in semester 1, these modules in semester 2, and then you have an autumn semester. So you have to be careful about which ones you select once you go into the online system. So there's a second stream here with the same information. There's optional modules. There's a third stream here, all the way down. So there's a lot of information on it. Just take your time when you're reading it. Once you've kind of figured out what modules you're going to pick, you can click this button here that says proceed to online registration. That will bring you into a separate screen where you use your DCU student number and your password that you just set up in onboarding. So you can see how onboarding and registration are crucial to each other. So make note of your password that you set up. You have note of your DCU student number. And once you click on this, you'll use both of them to get into the registration system. So we'll just click back to the slides now. So there's a lot of information on that screen, but it's really, really valuable. I think I'm back here. Am I back in the wrong one? Hold on.
Yep. No, you're back.
I think I was here. This fella here. Yep. Okay. So then into the next area where you select your modules and update your information, such as your address and telephone number, and pay your fees. Sorry, I have to jump back out again and show you there's an online step-by-step guide that you'll have access to as well. So once you hit the proceed to registration button from the last screen, it will show you this piece here, and it's the username is your DCU email address. You hit next, then you put in your password that you set up in onboarding. Okay, so this document really just goes through step by step exactly what you're going to be looking at. There's the reg schedule again. And then this is what the system looks like. So there's a lot of information again, work through the steps. So the first step you might have to be asked to do is the equal access survey. So you complete a survey, just that's for our statutory requirements with the government. You then move on. The document then brings you through step 2. What you have to do, you're adding your contact details on the system. Step 3 is you're updating your contact address. Maybe you know what your address is in Ireland. You can update it here so that we can, if we need to send you out letters, or we, you know, for anything else, we'll have an up-to-date contact address for you here. Then obviously your contact details, new telephone numbers, you can put that onto your biographical details as well. Your PPSN, which is probably more for Irish students. This is like a social security number. This doesn't have to be filled out. It's if you don't have one, that doesn't matter. You can bypass that step. Step 6 is really, really important. These are the registration rules and regulations, or the terms and conditions that you're signing up to. A lot of students miss this step and it causes all sorts of problems. If you can see on the bottom here, it says I accept. You have to click I accept on that page. If you don't click I accept on that page, you won't see your modules on the next page, because the system has recognized that you haven't accepted the terms and conditions, so you can't register until you do. So if you click I accept there, and you can move on to step 7, and this is where the reg schedule that we just looked at with the modules links in with these modules here, and you can just see that you can click on some modules are core and compulsory, as it's called here, so they're locked in on your record. You can't change them. But obviously, if you have optional modules, you select in the box and then you click continue. And whatever the total credits you should be, maybe you have to do 55 in the first year, maybe you have to do 60, maybe you have to do 90. You have to just make sure that your total credits add up to what your program allows. And once you're through there, you move on. You can see that you have a confirmation of your module choices there. You might like to just do a print screen of that, or print it out just for your records. And then you move on to step 8, just about accommodation type. And then 9 is cost of registration, where it brings you through the dreaded bill at the end for your registration. And then step 10 is how you pay your fees. I'll talk a little bit more about the fees piece as we go through, but this document is really, really helpful just to kind of navigate the system. It's a little bit old, the system, I'll say, so it's not very intuitive, but with this document, it can help you navigate all the steps all the way through and answer a lot of the questions that students seem to have. But what I'll say is I'm going to bring you back to the step 6, terms and conditions. Students get tripped over this a lot, so it's really helpful that if you just click I accept, and that will populate the modules on your record, and then you'll be able to select whatever you need. So let me just jump back into the slideshow here. Okay, so we've worked through our onboarding, we've worked through our registration schedule, and we have the DCU step-by-step guide, which is available on the website as well, and to help you navigate the system. So like I said, after the fee, after you've registered for your modules, you can pay your fees. So there's step 9 and step 10 of the registration process. You can select to pay either 100%, or you can do a 60-40 split. So the 60% is paid at registration, and then 40% is paid in January 2025. And any fees queries can be directed to the fees team there, and that's their email address there, is fees@dcu.ie. They have a lot of information on their website as well. If you just search fees and on the DCU website, you'll find them. But that's the breakdown of the fees that are the fee options that are available to students. Okay, so you've mastered and you've got through the registration process, so you get a gold star for that already, because it's kind of unwieldy. So the registry services that we offer then afterwards is once students are registered, you're entitled to a student ID card, obviously. So during the month of September, just outside in our building here, the Henry Grattan building, from the 4th of September, from Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, students can come along and collect their student card, their student ID. So you'll get your photograph taken, and you will get a DCU student card. Now you will need one of the things here listed below, and I'd imagine that most students will just have the top. You'll need to have a current valid passport, and I doubt you'll have an Irish driver's license or age cards issued by the police here in Ireland. So probably you'll need your current valid passport. You have to have it in person. You can't have a scan, or you can't have a photograph of it. You have to have it in your hand, so it can, your identification can be checked before we print it out. You won't be able to get a card if you haven't paid your fees. And you won't be able to get your card unless you've registered for your qualification on your modules either. So you need to have all those steps done before you can request a student card. But like I said, in the Henry Grattan building, you'll be able to call in and collect and sit down, get your photograph taken and get your ID card printed on the spot. So there really won't be any kind of a wait there for that. You can also complete it online. There's a link there. If you're not going to be on campus for a long time for whatever reason, and you need a DCU student card, you can request it there, but the same rules apply. You need to have registered for your qualification and your modules. You need to have made a payment on your fees, and you'll need to provide a scan of your valid passport, I imagine, before we can process that request. Okay. So second thing, a lot of students require are letters, registration, proof of registration letters, and then we have a lot of students that need forms stamped as well from social welfare or from other government agencies to prove that they're a student. So same rules apply again. You'll need to be registered. You'll need to have fees paid before we can print the letter for you. There's a request a letter. You can use that link there specifically for international students. We find that international students require more specific language on their letters than Irish students. So we have a specific template for letters. The turnaround time for letters is quite quick. Certainly through August and September, we resource that quite heavily to make sure that there's not a long waiting time. So usually we can get letters to students within 24, 48 hours when they're requested, because we realize students have important things to do with them. So there's a lot of information on that page as well. So if you read the information on that page carefully before you request the letter, and if you require a form to be stamped for whatever reason, you can call into the registry office on campus and we'll be happy to stamp the form. And again, you need to be fully registered for us to be able to do that. And that's really it. That's the process. So you've onboarded, you've registered, you've got your ID, you've got your letter, and then hopefully you enjoy the rest of your time in DCU. And registry really is here just to support any kind of queries around your modules. We can answer fee queries as well. And obviously we can support you with letters and proof of registration. Yeah, so so you don't have to worry about those things. We look after them for you, and you can get on and worry about or concentrate on your studies here.
That's great, Darren. Thank you so much for that information. I'm sure it's a lot to take in for everyone, a lot of details, but yeah. You know, the good thing is obviously we're recording this session. You'll be able to go back and access it when you're going through the registration. You know how to get in touch with us. So, you know, we're here to help and support you through this process. So I know there's probably been some questions coming through on the chat there, Tiago, and we might go through those. One thing I just wanted to also clarify for students as well, because a lot of our international students will have already made fee payments in order to apply for their visas and show that. So it may not be a situation where at the registration point that you have to pay fees if you have already done so. Okay. And Darren, does that show up then in that process if they've already made their 100% or 60% of their fees? When they get to that stage in the registration process, do they just bypass that, or what do they do or how does that look for them?
What I'd say is that if there's any kind of anomaly there in it, they could probably just highlight that to fees at dcu.ie just to flag it. I won't say that it totally will not be as expected, because sometimes the system doesn't do what we think it's going to do. So, but if there's any kind of anomaly, fees are there to help with those kind of queries.
Okay,
I wouldn't
great.
get too worried. I wouldn't worry if it's
it's nothing to stress about or
no,
worry
absolutely
about.
not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Tiago, is there anything there that we want to maybe address as a group?
I think most of the questions, Bridget, are more operational questions. For example, which address they should use because they shouldn't have the Irish address. If they don't have phone numbers in Ireland, so I assume they can use the address from their home country. Is that right?
Yeah, they don't have to. You don't have to change your address until you know what your address is. So it's not imperative for the registration to work that you need to have an Irish address. It's just a mechanism that if you do have your address, you can change it right away. But you can still get back into that system and update your details anytime during the year. That's always open to you. Those first few steps of that process. So once you have an Irish telephone number and you wish to change it or add it to your record, and once you have you know your address, you can add it to your record. So that really isn't a problem for registration.
And thanks, Darren. And then there is another question. We do have some undergrad students here, and then the question is if it is the same date for the registration.
No, it won't be the same day for registration for those students. Those students will most likely register. They'll get their email around the 5th or 6th of September for onboarding. So they'll probably be in with our CAO students or the rest of our students there in round one. When I say round one, but the undergrad group, let's say. So they'll be later in the process. So another 2 or 3 weeks time.
Oh, thank you. That's very good. And then there's a lot of questions about the login details to the registration, and then that's, I assume, all the information is going on the 21st in an email. But I think you mentioned that it's the DCU student number that they are going to use as a login.
So the DCU user number is their CRM or their application number, let's say, and it usually has a D on the front of it. I think is there number? Does it have a D?
Yeah, it should be. I think so. For those of you that have applied directly, you should have access to your student ID number, which usually starts with a 23 or a 22 number. And if you've applied through an agent or a partner of ours, they should also be able to assist you, make sure you identify what that student ID number is. So I think it's 8 digits.
That's right.
And it begins with 23. And that's how we identify you in the system. So it's important for you to know that is your number and to kind of keep that in a handy place because you might be asked for that at various times. So just make sure that you know what that is. And if you have any questions on that, again, we can help you with that. We have access to that as well.
Yeah, all of our systems from onboarding onwards will always ask you your DCU student number. So you might not know it now, but you will remember very, very soon because you'll have to use it all the time to access all the systems within DCU.
Yeah.
And then there's some questions here regarding the modules. So they are asking if they can see the list of the modules. So my advice, I think, would be go to the course page and you will see all the modules there. So you will know which modules you will have each semester. I don't think they would have access to the registration page before that.
No, they have access to the registration schedule page that we brought up there earlier on. That's on the public side of things. So they can certainly search for their program, and if they search for registration schedule, it'll bring them to that little search page, and they can search for their program and have a look at their modules beforehand and see the rules and what can be taken in semester 1, what has to be taken in semester 2. So that can be done beforehand. Yeah, that's open.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And then another question is the deadline for the registration on the 21st?
No, the deadline's not on the 21st. I can't remember the deadline off the top of my head, but let's just say try and register before the end of August.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think that answered most of the questions. I think most of the questions were around that.
Yeah.
And then there is another question here. So they are asking if there is any extra registration fees plus on top of those 60%.
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
just saw one popping up there about where the email is sent. That onboarding email is sent to your personal email address or the email address you use to make the application, because we won't have a DCU address for you yet until you create your account. So it goes to your personal email address initially.
Yeah.
And then
So
after
again,
that, we'll always just interact with you with your DCU email address once that's set up.
yeah. So just a side point, I think that's important to mention there as well too. Again, if you've applied through the assistance of an agent, you know, you want to make sure that whatever email address they put in the system for your application, you have access to in order to get your registration email. So again, double check if you're working with a consultant or a counselor and just sort of say, you know, I'm expecting to get an email. It's going to go to the personal email address that was submitted as part of the application, and make sure that you know what that is so you can be on the lookout. And also always good to double check junk mail or spam mail or things like that too. You never know. Sometimes things can get filtered. So just double check before you know, you have any questions about it. Just make sure you check all of those things. And then if there's still an issue or still a concern, we can certainly step in and help with that. So I think there were a couple of questions that came through.
We have just two more here. One of the questions is, can they shouldn't do the registration before the visa? Before they actually get the visa?
Yeah, I mean, the registration process is a DCU process, whereas the visa and immigration process is outside the university, right? That's the Department of Justice. So they're not connected. Obviously, you can still register without having the visa, but you need the visa in order to travel and to enter the country. So you need to make sure you have that in order. And you know, but we're not gonna ask you any questions about your visa status during the registration process. So it's not linked in that way.
Okay, thank you. And I think just to close now, they are asking if they can get the DCU ID card before pay the last 40% of the fees in January.
Yeah, you can. Once you've paid up to 60, once you paid 60% or more, you get your ID card. That's no problem.
Yeah. Tiago, sorry, I think there were a couple of questions there. They may have come to me directly about the letter process and what the letters are used for. So I just wanted to address that quickly as well. Obviously, once you arrive in Ireland, there are certain aspects that you have to take care of, whether that might be the registration with the Immigration Service. It might be opening a bank account. It might be, you know, other confirmations that you are indeed a registered student at DCU. So essentially, that's what this letter provides, is a written statement that says, yes, you've completed the registration process, you've paid your fees, you're a student at DCU. And that letter then can be used to accomplish some of those other tasks that you have to do. So essentially, when you arrive, you can request that letter through the link Darren shared, and then you'll be able to take that letter with you if you're going to external offices or groups and need to confirm your status as a student. So it's not something that you can request early, because we have to actually make sure you're registered and confirm all of that has been completed. So again, I know a lot of students, it kind of can cause some anxiety because they're in a hurry to get their appointments for various things. But as Darren said, they turn the letters around quite quickly. It's important to submit your request and let the request process. The more, if people sort of email or submit multiple requests or do things, it just clogs up the system. So the best thing to do when you arrive and you've gone through all the steps, submit the form, and it will get to you as quickly as possible. So I know that was one thing maybe that students were asking about.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then there's another one here asking if the DCU issued the number, it's the same number on their offer letter. And then yes, it's exactly that number that you would need. So it should be very handy if you have your offer letter with you during the registration.
Yeah. So that's great. I mean, hopefully, like I said, that is some good information for everyone. I think the important takeaway that I have there is just understanding that it is a step-by-step process. So just making sure you go through each step completely will allow you to kind of move into the next phase. So the onboarding, getting your email, getting your ID set up, doing the registration, making sure all the fees are paid, and then hopefully arriving here in Dublin, going through all of the orientation process and everything that we've discussed in previous webinars. And as Darren said, really enjoying your studies and being able to focus on why you're here and what you're doing. So it's getting close, guys. We're in the homeward stretch. So we're looking forward to welcoming you here to DCU. We do have one more webinar next week. So for those of you interested in learning more about the arrivals process, so we're going to kind of take you through what it's like to go through the airport, how to get to DCU, or, you know, kind of what that arrivals kind of process feels like. Feel free to join us next week, and we'll walk you through all of that. In the meantime, for everyone who's registered for the webinar, we'll send you out the recording of today's session. We'll also have the slides available for you as well. And bear in mind that all of the previous webinars are also on the website. So all of the webinars we've already done, you can access if you weren't able to join us live. And also make sure to follow us on socials, because we are updating and posting things on the socials as well. So make sure to add or follow DCU Global, and you'll get some good information there too. So if that's everything, I think we can probably wrap it up. Any last comments, Tiago or Darren? Anything else?
No, good for me.
Nope. Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody, and have a great day. And yeah, get in touch if you need anything else.